The aging narcissist, victim cadre. I am often asked about the effects of the advancement of time and aging on our kind. Do narcissists get worse as they get older, HG? Is it right, HG, that narcissists actually mellow, become less abrasive as they get older? It is neither of those things. Age affects narcissists differently, dependent upon primarily the school and the cadre. In this video, I'll be explaining to you how aging affects those narcissists that are of the victim cadre. The victim cadre. There are 4 cadres of narcissist: somatic, cerebral, elite, which is a combination of somatic and cerebral, and victim. All narcissists have a victim mentality to some degree. With others, it is very obvious. With some, barely discernible, but it is there. As part of that, the narcissist makes use of emotional blackmail, pity plays, sympathy symphonies, as part of the narcissistic arsenal of manipulations for the purposes of acquiring the prime aims. The victim cadre relates to individuals who are not necessarily successful, but can be, of reasonable financial success, for instance, but they are especially needy. It might be that they, in effect, are looking for some form of mothering, some kind of pastoral care, notwithstanding the fact that they are an adult. The individual might indeed be looking for someone to care for them, look after them health-wise, run around doing their cooking, cleaning and laundry. In other instances, somebody to protect and to shield, and somebody who regards the world as particularly difficult within which to manage, and is always returning to the relevant appliance or appliances, asking them to solve problems for them, make difficulties go away, and such like. There are lots of different strands which apply to somebody who is of the victim cadre, and to establish whether a narcissist belongs to the victim cadre, you need to utilize the narc detector consultation. If you want to understand more about the victim cadre at this juncture, you need to utilize my book, Sitting Target. But that gives you a brief overview of the victim cadre. How is this applicable to the victim cadre within the lesser school? Age will give the lesser victim narcissists more to complain about, more to point to, and more to seek sympathy for. This is applicable to lower lesser victim and middle lesser victim. We will come to the upper lesser shortly. The lower lesser victim and the middle lesser victim, used to already drawing fuel primarily through the application of concern, sympathy and caring, can look forward to getting more of this as time advances. As these types of narcissists are often ill, find themselves in increasingly ill health, their flesh weakens and their conditions become all the more debilitating, he or she will rely heavily on gaining fuel from the primary source, who will also be likely to be the primary carer. With the lower lesser and middle lesser lacking the ability to seek fuel from fraternizing with new sources, the lower lesser victim and the middle lesser victim will look to have their fuel levels maintained by the primary source and a very small group of family and friends. They will be something of a curmudgeon, always complaining about aches and pains, in order to assert control and draw that ever-precious fuel. And the lower lesser victim and middle lesser victim will be regarded as burdens. There will be repeated threats to the narcissist's control, occasioned by illness and ill health, aches and pains, injury, whereby the failure to alleviate the symptoms or attend to the narcissist will be seen as, through the narcissistic lens, as a threat to control. The narcissist will often erupt when he feels he's not being cared for and his or her physical pains become too great. Usually, the lower lesser victim or middle lesser victim will most likely have chosen a carrier empath to shoulder this burden. But if the primary source should ever escape, although this is less likely as the relevant primary source will have been selected for his or her quality caring and domestic attributes, the narcissist is likely to be moved to a care home, where a succession of carers will be shunted between the status of non-intimate primary source and non-intimate secondary source. The lower lesser victim and middle lesser victim in advanced age will struggle to find a replacement intimate partner primary source if the IPPS escapes. They often do not. Instead, they remain long-suffering spouses or partners of the narcissist who feel obligated by the corruption, by emotional thinking of their empathic traits of compassion, honesty, and decency and caring to continue to look after the narcissist. If the IPPS has escaped, then the lower lesser victim and middle lesser victim will struggle to find that replacement. This is because they have relied slowly on the need to be mothered and looked after as a selling point. It may seem strange to you to think that that could ever be a selling point, but for certain type of empaths, the fact that they have somebody who needs this excessive level of care enables those empaths to discharge their empathic obligations to the greatest extent, and therefore they are drawn towards those particular narcissists. The lower lesser victim or middle lesser victim of advanced age will find a situation where his or her parents will already be dead, and therefore they cannot be promoted to primary source. He or she will also lack the mobility and cognitive function to seduce a new intimate partner primary source. They can do this when younger, when their illnesses and injuries are not as extensive, and he's more readily able to find that especially caring individual. But when he or she is much older, this option is not available. Those narcissists neither have charm, money, or intellect to draw a younger appliance to him or her, and therefore the lower lesser victim and the middle lesser victim runs the risk of losing the long-standing primary source through his rants and tantrums, driving them away. Should this happen, then the lower lesser victim and the middle lesser victim will seek to rely on existing family members, possibly brother, sister, or more usually children, and will do so as secondary sources within the fuel matrix. But it is highly unlikely that any of them will be willing to adopt the mantle of non-intimate partner primary source, as they will have their own lives to lead. And unless the lower lesser victim or middle lesser victim can sustain control over and obtain fuel from these secondary sources, along with professional carers as secondary sources, then the lower lesser victim and middle lesser victim face a diminution in fuel, which will add a further weakness to the physical and mental ones which have already amassed. Decrepitude is inevitable. The aged lower lesser victim or middle lesser victim becomes even more unappealing with age, furious at their limitations, unable to control that fury because of a low threshold on that ignited fury, and weakened from fuel losses. His or hers is an unpleasant dotage. They will lash out at those who care for them, running the risk of isolating them also, and further becoming the author of their own misfortune, as they are visited less and less by a reducing pool of friends and family who who are quite simply sick of the way they are being treated. If somehow the lower lesser or middle lesser has been able to secure professional care, he or she will be regarded as a cantankerous and unpleasant charge for those caring for him or her who only do so out of a sense of professional obligation, and therefore the fuel provided by these professional caregivers will be limited. The lower lesser victim or middle lesser victim will invariably lack mobility, and even access to technology is unlikely to assist through reduced cognitive function, diminished hearing, and eyesight. The middle lesser or lower lesser will also have led a life which has been poor in terms of health and hygiene. He or she may well have issues with drink, and will turn to this in particular as he slowly drinks himself to death, using it as a crutch against the cruelty of the world, leaving him in this manner. He will sink into a routine of demanding his fix of drinks or tobacco, caring not for the deleterious impact that it will have, but rather needing the short-term boost it provides him with, oblivious to the downward spiral that he has embarked upon. A combination of poor lifestyle choices, pre-existing health problems, and the potential loss of a primary source caregiver, added to the fact that other secondary sources are likely to remain away as a consequence of the unpleasant, nasty, and malodorous nature of the middle lesser or lower lesser victim narcissist, means that they are more likely to face death in their 50s and 60s. The lower lesser victim or middle lesser victim, unable to control the beast within, will frighten away those but the most hardy, and therefore they run a considerable risk, as they age, of descending at an early juncture into decrepitude, loneliness, fury, and being unloved. Their already shortened days come to an ignominious end.